podcast talking about weight loss surgery. I am not a licensed professional. Any views and or opinions expressed in this show are those of the speakers and do not reflect the bariatric community as a whole. Always reach out to a professional with any medical issues you are experiencing. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unzipped with Sherry, with yours truly, because hello, I'm Sherry. I have a fancy little hat today because it's Christmas week. We have Christmas in a couple of days, and if you're watching this a few weeks from now, just disregard this whole beginning part or whatever. But I'm really excited for today's episode because we have Chaz on the show, and Chaz is 10 weeks, I believe, post-op. He had the gastric sleeve in October of this year. So he's kind of a newbie, and I love talking to the newbies because, one, it reminds me of what life was like back in the day, because at one point you're going to forget all about the beginning stages and you're just going to be riding the excitement train. And two, he has a really incredible story. It's so amazing to watch somebody so early in their journey have such an amazing mindset already, and it's only going to grow exponentially from here. So I'm really excited. Chaz, I hope you're ready, because we're about to get unzipped. We all have a story on how we got here, right? So for me, I used to be over 350 pounds until one day I made the single decision that I wanted change. Weight loss surgery has saved my life, and now I am here for you. I want to hear your story. You know, the one that happened during that before and after picture. It's time to unzip. What's your story? Hello, hello.
What's up?
How are you today?
I'm incredible. How are you?
Good. I think it's hilarious that we almost missed starting the live on time because we've been shooting this shit for a while. And then I looked at the clock. And I'm like, holy shit, we got to do a show right now.
We got to
no
do
pressure.
And then
Yeah.
I really like your intro, and it's like, it's time to get unzipped. And I was like, dang, how can I, I don't have anything to unzip. I wanted and then I was like, maybe my pants. And I was like, okay, that'd be awkward.
Whoa.
But
that's a different show. But maybe we'll have like an unzipped, unplugged episode, like a Barry After Dark or something like that. That could be kind of interesting. Do you know why I named it Unzipped?
No.
Because it kind of goes along with what you're saying. I'll make it really quick because it's not about me today. It's about you. But for right now, I'll make it about me. So what I liked about the term unzipped is I used to have this vision, like when I was 350 pounds, of going to a party in like a fat suit, and that this whole time it was just a fat suit I was in, and that you unzip and then like your true form like comes out. I used to have like this reoccurring dream or like vision that I wanted to have. But then two, one thing I loved about it is every time we unzip, we're about to do something vulnerable, whether it's in the restroom or the bedroom or whatever. And I like the idea of like when I wrote the book is I wanted to be as extremely vulnerable as possible to show the realities of everything and truly expose myself in order to truly heal from within and then be able to help other people. So that's like my little shindig spiel on that.
I love that. That's so good. And I really love the analogy about like you said, when you unzip, regardless of what you're unzipping, it is in some way going to be a vulnerable thing. Just period. I love it. I love the title, and I love what you're doing. And thanks so much for allowing me to be on. I'm so excited.
Of course. I'm glad that you even agreed to be on. Like, I know that I'm small potatoes right now, but I've just been loving this ride right now, talking to you guys. We all have the same basic fundamental issue when it came to obesity and weight loss, but every single one of our stories is so different. And I learned something new from every single one of you, which is what I love. Hello, Cindy, who's watching. Cindy was on the show a couple months ago. She was one of the earlier guests that I ever had.
What's up, Cindy?
So this is what's going to happen. The hour is going to go by really, really quick. And then we're not going to have time to go through everything. Okay. So why don't you take a moment and give us a little bit about what Chaz's backstory was before surgery?
I'm distracted right now.
Why are you distracted?
Because you didn't tell me that we were supposed to dress in our Christmas attire. You've got the hat. You've got the matching lipstick. You've got this tree behind you with these beautiful ornaments, and I have a navy blue that looks black polo shirt on. And I'm in my office. I have nothing festive. This is not festive. It's not festive. My water's not festive. These glasses aren't festive.
But you know what I think though?
Hang on. I got a gift from a lender the other day. This might be festive.
It's freaking adorable.
It's festive.
Okay, so Cindy said you can quickly put on lipstick first and foremost, but two, maybe the reason is that your being as a whole is already so festive that you don't have to wear it externally like I do. You're already a beacon of festivities.
I'll take it.
I like that. Sometimes,
Thanks for telling me how
sometimes I impress myself.
it's awesome. So your question was what now? Tell me about like my
Um,
backstory.
yeah, tell me a little bit about your origin story, like before weight loss ever came, the surgery ever came into play.
Yeah. Well,
No pressure.
it's really a hard one for me to ever like answer a question like that because I feel like for me, obviously, like for the person that's dealing with every like day to day piece of your timeline, like where did it start? Um, but I mean, I'm from San Diego, California. So I would live in California forever. I live in Oklahoma now. I'm an only child raised by a single mom. My mom's obese. My dad, who I don't know, was also an obese guy. Um, but I mean, I only met my dad once. Like he wasn't in the picture, but I do know he was a big guy. So
Mm,
I don't know if that means it was in the genes. I don't really know. But my mom has struggled with food as well, and definitely believe that you're a product of your surroundings. And so that was a big deal. And then just to give you the Cliff Notes version, I remember people a lot of times like, when was the first time you really realized like you were big? Well, I knew I was big when I was young. I knew when you're a young boy and you're wearing like you have to shop for husky pants, so big
right.
waist, short legs, like where's the husky section? Like that word makes me want to vomit,
Mm,
and so there's that, right? And then
mhm.
but then I'll tell you a couple like things that stood out to me. One was being 16 years old in Burger King. And I remember convincing my mom. Now understand this. Oh, dude's from Oklahoma. What's
Mm,
up, Jason? So understand like for those of the people that are like watching and that have been through like an obesity story, right, or a
mhm,
bariatric story, whether it's a surgery thing on the horizon or not, but a lot of us have been there to some degree. The roots are where it's so deep, right? And so I
mhm.
remember my mom and I at this Burger King, and I was trying to figure out what to order, and I convinced my mom that she should let me just get two Whoppers with cheese instead of one because that way I wouldn't be hungry later. Now, I'm not putting the blame as I tell you that on my mom,
Right.
but that was like I remember exactly that. I remember the day. I remember where we were at that Burger King, and I remember saying like, "Let me just get two Whoppers instead of one, and that way I won't be hungry later." And she's like, "Okay." And now we live in this world where supersized is the size of a suitcase, and an average size drink
Mhm.
is 32 ounces. A large is like a gallon. Like so. We obviously live in a world that's not helping us for people that struggle with their weight or with control. But
Right.
I remember that was a big one where I was like, that's a problem. And I mean, obviously, because I looked back at it now, still thinking clearly that that was a problem.
Yeah.
Then about at 18 or so is when I remember the habits forming of I'd get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. This still happens, by the way, to this day, every single day. And I'm not proud of this. Get up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom, and you look in the mirror. I sleep in my underwear, so I look in the mirror, and there's my belly. And I'm just like, ah, and sometimes it's like discouragement. Sometimes it's like, oh,
Mhm.
tomorrow I'm going to start fresh. It's like, and so that's been an ongoing thing. So really, like as far as the obesity side of my story, that's really where it stemmed from. And then I feel like that's kind of mentally like beating yourself up for years and years.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean I love myself. I'm confident in who I am as a person. I don't think I'm an ugly person. I'm a big guy, carry it all in my belly,
Yeah.
and I wrote that story. I'm not proud of that, but it's the story I wrote.
And before surgery, what was the highest you'd ever gotten to?
The highest I've ever weighed that I've seen on a scale was 365.
Okay.
And I believe, like, to me that would be a peak thing. I don't believe it's not like I saw that, but I think I went higher. I don't believe I've ever been higher than that, but I think there was a season in my life, probably in around 2015-16, where I was around that weight.
Hmm. And then, so walk us through, at one point, was there anything specific that happened where you kind of just decided one day, enough's enough, I need to do something about this?
I mean, I've probably done it 30 times in my life
Mm,
where it's been enough's enough. But there was a
mm,
day, April 25th, 2021, approximately.
mm,
And I thought you can keep changing the narrative, and it can be like Monday starts a new diet, or
mm,
Monday I'm going to eat lean and clean, or tomorrow I'm going to do intermittent fasting. or
Mhm.
tomorrow I'm going to try keto because maybe keto really does work, or I could try another one of these scam shakes things, and there's all these different things, these different ways.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I was going to end up in the same place, unhappy, not feeling good, a little bit depressed, not being the parent I want to be, not living the life to my fullest. And so, what really truly are options that will real life shift the outcome? And the answer to that for me is bariatric surgery. And I was not a fan of that for years. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. I don't care what people do, but my thought was always like, if I can't control my eating now, oddly enough, now that I've been through it, I have a really interesting, completely different take on it now. But my thought stereotypically was like, if somebody can be disciplined enough to like have to eat really strict before their surgery and then eat really strict after the surgery, if you can have that discipline, then
Right.
why wouldn't we just have the same discipline and lose the weight? The reality is it is a tool, literally a tool like out of the toolbox. And secondly, it's easy to say like, I'm going to limit my foods, I'm going to do this and that,
Right.
and in our head we talk ourselves out of it. But when your body physically can't do it, or when you know it's really go time and you know it's for your health or your safety or like to keep you
Right.
alive, like then you do, it is a different story. So the truth is the story I wrote is not the reality. So again, there was that day where I was like, it's time to make, it's time to ask some questions. And that day is when I started asking some questions. I knew some people that had the sleeve. I started asking one, and then I'd ask another, and I asked
Mhm.
questions that mattered to me. And by the way, those questions are like, how did you survive a liquid diet? How hard has it been? You know, are you glad you did it?
Right.
You know,
It's funny because I was the exact same way as you. Is I had this belief that we didn't gain the weight overnight. We can't expect it to lose every night. And I would watch people who would have surgery, and I'm like, I'm not judging you, but I was like, for me, I was like, I if I just followed that kind of a diet and just had been very strict and disciplined, then I'm gonna get the results.
yeah,
And then I started doing that, and I started putting everything I had to it, and I was doing the workouts, and I was following specific diets, and I'm like, wait, how come the weight's not falling off? And then
yeah,
then it wasn't so much as like it's not for a lack of trying or discipline or determination. There's something obviously happening, and it could have been years of damage to your body. Like your metabolism's like, what the smurf am I going to do with you now? Like I just throw in the towel and give up.
yeah,
And so for many of us, this surgery is literally the only option we have left if we want to have a longer life.
mm,
And Jason brings up a really good point. We talked about it on the show before. Is food is one of those addictions that you can't run away from. If you used to be addicted to drugs or smoking or alcohol or any other addiction, at some point you can give it up entirely, never touch it again, and live the rest of your life, addiction free. With food, you can't just never eat again. And so the one thing that you need to survive is the same thing that's also killing you. And
yeah,
trying to find that balance is probably one of the hardest things that we deal with. And it's not just weight loss people, it's everybody who has like any kind of an eating disorder, an eating issue. Like it's learning to retrain your entire relationship. Um, so when you made the decision to have the surgery, did you have like a good support system? Were people on the fence for you? Like what was that like?
yeah. I mean, generally speaking, yes, yeah, for sure. My mom and I are really close. We always have been. Whenever I made the decision that I was going to move forward with it, I talked to my mom. I talked to my son, both of which are like the most important people in my life, and they were both supportive. And I knew they would be, just because I mean I have a supportive family, but also I just there wasn't a reason not to be supportive of it.
Right.
My son, both of them were probably a little nervous. Maybe even now that I say that, my mom might have even been a little more nervous, and nervous as far as like, since surgery. So
Well,
there's the
it's her cub. It's her babies having surgery. It's serious.
yeah, but supportive for sure. Both of them have been and continue to be very supportive. And yeah, I mean, my circle, my family's small, but the support people I have in my life are great, and it's a huge amount of support.
I love that. And you had mentioned that you have a teenage son, and so you just had the sleeve this year, which I can't believe it's only been 10 weeks after seeing like some of your before and after pictures already. Like it's crazy.
That means a lot.
But being a single dad and having your son, I don't have kids yet. Like we'll see what happens, but I can only imagine. I know what it was like for me the night before surgery, being married, and like what a possible issue can have to my husband. What goes through your mind as a parent right before you do, like, you're basically about to change your entire life, but you're having people say it's a minor surgery, it's a less invasive than other surgeries, but it's still a major surgery.
Yeah, I mean, it's still you're still going under the knife to some degree or another. You're still being put under, pretty heavy sedation. So, and by the way, and I think you and I share this, but I had never been in a hospital bed before. I'd never been
Yeah,
in a
me
hospital
neither.
gown. Which, by the way, nobody told me that you're butt naked under the hospital gown. Uh, Like
Yeah.
that was more traumatic than anything. I'm
Mhm.
like, I told the nurse, I was like, I'm just letting you know, like, I'm really uncomfortable right now. Like the
And not only that, when you're over 300 and something pounds, sometimes the gown doesn't fit entirely around
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like stuff's hanging out or whatever, but like, yeah, so that was challenging. But no, it is still a serious surgery, and it is, sometimes they compare it and they say, well, it's like it's not really any different than like maybe a gallbladder surgery or something, which I've also not had, but
yeah, I haven't had
it
that
was
either.
surgery to me. So yeah, I mean, anyways, there are natural and understanding fears and risks associated, um, but anyhow, so to answer your question, yeah, so the night before was actually pretty chill. It was just Braxton and I, my son, and it was just a pretty relaxed night. Went to bed pretty early, and wanted to get some rest. I had to be at the hospital at 9:15 in the morning, and I think surgery day. I mean, if there was a moment that sticks out, it was, that hour and a half or so where we like. So I went in the room. They put me in the gown. They had me sign the forms. They start hooking me up to some things. This is just pre-op, and then they bring Braxton in once I'm kind of like set in the bed.
Right.
And then so he hung out with me it ended up being about an hour and a half before I got wheeled back. Um, and we just hung out, like we just chatted, but that was the moment, that time there, um, where I wasn't distracted by anything else was when I was really thinking like, I mean, I haven't said this to him, but it's like, there is this little reality and thank God I have faith.
Mhm.
And I know God's got plans. But there's this little piece that's like, when he leaves the room, like, I actually don't know what happens next.
Right.
I can't know anything. I can have faith, but I can't know anything. And so there was just this moment where, as he was, as it was like, all right, buddy, I'll see you afterwards. There was just like this little internal thought of like, I have to the only thing I can do is trust, right?
Right.
The only thing. So that was the moment that there was like, this is real.
I think, and it was the same thing too. And the last thing you want to do is let on that you're stressed about it. So you put up a front and you're like, yeah, like it's going to be fine. Like, no, yeah, I'm really stressed about the ounces or whatever. Because you don't want to scare them and let them know that you're scared, especially if you're the stronger one or if you're a strong person or like if you have a kid, like you need to let them know that you got this, like, everything's going to be okay. But inside you're like, there's always a very, very small chance that everything will change in the next couple of hours,
Hmm.
like forever. And like that kind of fear, which I think on one hand, it's good to have some fear because I think the idea of it really makes you think twice about not wanting to do this properly and
Yeah.
doing everything in your power to make sure you don't have a complication. Um, so the surgery's over. You open your eyes.
Hold on, let me say this.
Oh, go
Like,
ahead.
no matter how much, like when you were talking about like the I was just gonna say like best case scenario because you said like when you have that fear, there's the reality that like it really no, it could be a lot of different outcomes over the next couple. Well, here's the deal. Best case scenario, it's still a major different outcome. Like best case
Yes.
scenario, you still got cut open, you still got sedated, you still wake up in a recovery room. So even at the best, which I believe my experience, at least though, and during surgery was great. I mean, no problems. But yes, like you're right. Like it's good to have some fear in there and just to be reminded, like this is a major thing. And even
Yes.
best case scenario, it's still a life change. You know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good. What I was gonna say is, so like the morning of surgery, when everything's done and you wake up, what was going through your mind that day?
Okay, so like I wake up in this room called PACU. I don't even know what that stands for, but it was PACU. I guess it's like where you like come out of anesthesia, and it's this big room. So, anyways, I wake up and I like look over like this, and there's this big red clock, and it says 2:46 p.m. And I, for some reason, that's just like stapled in my mind. Still, probably will be forever. So in my head, I like obviously knew it was afternoon. I knew I woke up. I knew I was still alive. And then my second thought was like, "Oh, they did something to my stomach. Like I could feel the pain, not pain, discomfort,
Yeah.
discomfort. That clearly somebody had been like gnawing on my body,
Right.
and which was also new. Like I said, I'd never had that, so I didn't
Hmm.
never knew what those feelings were like. And so, so yeah, so 246. And then, my stomach feels a little weird. And then this awesome, such a nice guy, whoever this nurse was, came up right away. He must have been obviously monitoring me. And he just came up and introduced himself and said, "You just woke up from surgery. How are you feeling?" I'm like, I think they did it because my stomach, I can feel it." And he's like, "Well, do you need some more pain medicine?" I said, "Maybe." And so they gave me some pain medicine. And the room that I was in is like, there's a lot of people recovering, like,
Mm-hmm.
or at least in my head. Now the reality is, I don't know, because I was still probably pretty doped up.
Yeah.
But I know there was a guy next to me, like maybe 20 feet away, and he must have just come out of it. He was super loud. It was a different kind of surgery, but he was really loud. Like, he was not doing okay coming out of his stuff. And then there was a lady across the way from me, and there's 2 or 3 nurses all kind of helping everybody. And so that was a really weird kind of foreign feeling to me. I felt like I was in this big room of hurt people. But everybody was nice. And so, anyways, how did I feel? Yeah, it was like, it was a new feeling. I've never felt that in my life. It was new. I wouldn't say I was excited yet, because I was so
Yeah.
hooked up.
And was Braxton there when you woke up?
So the deal was, Braxton. So it was, surgery was on a Friday, October 7th, and Braxton worked. He was working a fall job that was very full time. He's homeschooled, and so he's like, "I'm going to be at your surgery no matter what, but I do have to work at some point today, or that day." And so I just said, "Well, that's fine, but I want you to be there to see me off, and I really want you to be there. I just need you to make sure that I come through recovery and I'm okay. And
Right.
once I'm okay, go to work and do what you got to do." Reality was, I was hoping I'd see him when in
Of
the
course.
but so I get moved up to a recovery room. And so no, he wasn't. Yes, he was there in the morning. He was there throughout, but he was not there when I woke up. And funny story about that. So I'm like, I asked this nurse, I was like, "Hey, can we?" Because now I'm in a room, so I'm expecting, like,
Right.
my son's going to be there, and he's not. And so I was like, "Hey, can we call my son, let him know he can come up?" And so um, she's like, "Yeah." So she calls him, and then she hands me the nurse's line phone. And he's like, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Hey, buddy." I'm like, "You can come up now." He's like, "Oh, I'm driving to work." And I'm like, I was so heartbroken and kind of scared. Like,
Yeah.
why did he leave? Like, why did he clock out? You know what I mean? Like, why did
Yeah.
he bounce?
Why
And
have you abandoned me?
yeah. And he goes, "No, they called me earlier and they told me that you're good. Like, you were in recovery. And I felt like it was okay for me to head out to work." And I said, "Okay." I said, "But what about my bag and my phone? Like, you have all my stuff." And he's like, "No, no, it's in your room." And I was like, "Well, then where room am I in?" And I look over, and I'm in this hospital bed. I kind of look to my left, and there's a window, and there's this long string with a big black balloon. And then about that time, the nurse goes, "No, your stuff's right here." Like, I guess we hadn't had that conversation.
Right.
I just wanted to call my son. I didn't say, "Is my stuff here?" I
Right.
wouldn't even thought to ask that. I thought I would see him carrying my stuff up. So anyways, he goes, I said, "Well, I think I'm in the wrong room then, because there's a big black balloon and it says, 'Congratulations on your retirement.'" And Braxton kind of giggles and he goes, "That's from me." I said, "But
What?
Braxton, I didn't retire." And he goes, "But your stomach did." And he was referring to, like, it was gastric sleeve. They cut a part of your stomach out and it's gone. And for some reason, in his little 16-year-old brain, like, the way he articulated that and conveyed it out was like, "This part of you is gone. This part of you's over. That's its retirement for that." And I thought it was very clever. And once I figured out what he was talking about, I thought it was the sweetest thing ever.
That is literally the coolest, one of the coolest ways to describe this surgery is like retiring your stomach or retiring your old self.
Yeah,
And he's thinking of that.
I wouldn't have ever, like, that's not something I would have thought out like that.
No, I would have never thought about that.
Yeah, so it was really special.
Okay, Braxton's kind of cool.
He
Don't
is.
tell him I said that.
I
Don't tell him
won't.
I said that. I gotta have a certain image around him.
Yes, tough and
Um,
raw.
I got. So you're home from surgery. You're recovering. You're on this new way of life. Like for you, what was the journey like? Was it like what was the first few weeks like for you? Did you have any issues with it, or was it pretty easy peasy?
So I won't say easy peasy, because I also don't like. I know everybody's recovery is different, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
important. Like, if one of the things I feel like I'm on this earth to do is to share the journey, whether that's just my life, my back, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to just be weight loss, but our journey in general. I think it's important to, like, put stuff out there. But I don't ever want anybody to think like it's just super easy, because
Right.
even the easy parts have a lot of pieces. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like today, Friday I'll be 11 weeks. Has today been pretty easy? Kind of. Actually, let me back up to your question so I don't get on a tangent, but like every day is different.
Yeah.
So I went home the same day. Surgery ended up, I got wheeled in probably just before noon, and then I remember waking up at 2:46. They say surgery usually takes around an hour. Uh,
Hmm.
so by the time I woke up, it was mid-afternoon. Um, and I had the option to go home that day, and I wanted to. Again, somebody who's never been in a hospital before, I wanted to be home. And so
Yeah.
the doctor had asked me beforehand, or is that something you're wanting to do? I'm like, absolutely, because I was hoping she'd let me. And she said, well, let's check in on you in the evening, and let's just see how you're feeling. If you're up to it, then we can look at releasing you. Um, so that was the deal. And so, I mean, in the hospital, wake up, give me some pain meds, lay around, and I'm kind of in and out for a couple hours, dozing off a lot. And then at one point, finally they're like, so they said you want to go home today. I'm like, I do. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to need to and need to make sure you get some fluids in. And then they also needed me to go to the bathroom. They're like, you got to
Hmm.
pee, and you can walk and you can drink. Then you'll probably be able to go. So painful, like it was really painful. There's
Right.
everybody has a different definition and interpretation, but there's for gastric sleeve, generally there's what they call a deep stitch, is on the right side. So not only do you have your incisions, which are pretty small, even the deep stitch isn't a big stitch, but
Hmm.
I think they call it the deep stitch because that's where they go in the deepest and they extract that 75-80%
Right.
out there. So it's got the most trauma out of all the little incisions. That's the one that dealt with the most trauma, right?
Yeah.
And
Which
so,
is, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say just side note. I remember like when I woke up from surgery, the one incision, the one that you're talking about, was the only one I really had pain out of. And at the time I didn't understand it. And I remember asking the doctor, and I'm like, why does it hurt like in this one particular stitch so much? And he goes, oh, he's like, this is what I had to do. He's like you have to put your foot on your stomach and yank that sucker out of your body. He's like, that's why it's gonna be quite painful. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, all right,
Uh,
if my doctor can make a joke about this, I'm thinking everything went okay. But
yeah.
out of all, did you have 5 or 6 incisions?
5.
Okay, I had 5 too, and that was the only one that
Yes,
hurt.
for sure. And let me like two parts I want to share about that. So one is the other ones I never felt, still don't feel. They were fine. I mean, as far as like no pain, no
Hmm.
nothing, no issues. Do they use glue on your
Yeah.
incisions? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So internally stitched, which apparently just dissolves. That's my
It's
final.
like a dissolve. Yeah, yeah,
And externally, it was just a like a liquid Band-Aid or glue.
yeah.
And so that went really well. But anyways, on that deep stitch, so she said, well, she wanted me to sit up to get up, and it was the most excruciating pain I've had in my life. Like I
Mhm.
thought I was literally tearing my insides. Now I had been told about this deep stitch. I had been told about the type of pain, but yeah, I never experienced it, and so I was scared to death. I'm like, man, am I hurting myself? Like, because
Right.
it hurts bad. And interestingly enough, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I remember a few days later telling somebody that I thought it was kind of crappy. That I said my only bad experience was I feel like the nurse should have grabbed my arm and helped me up. Like it hurt
Mhm.
freaking bad. And whoever I was telling that said, no, if she would have helped you, it was my mom. She said, you
Mm.
probably would have been able to go home. I think she needed to see you get up
Right,
because
on your own.
assisting you, how does she send you home?
Right.
And I do respect that, looking at it from a different angle. But when I was feeling it, I wasn't. I was like, man, I wish she would have helped. Like, why would she just sit there and look at me in pain? Because I couldn't.
Mhm.
It hurt so bad. I needed help. But I did it. I got up, and that was the big pain. And then I walked, and everything's fine, fine-ish. And then that deep stitch, just for people that might be thinking about surgery, that deep stitch pain was that sharp tearing type pain. Only
Mhm.
when you move. First night was horrible. It was the worst night of my life to this date, for lots of reasons. We don't need to go into details, but it sucked. First night sucked, but it's
Right.
surgery, so it's going to be. Um, and and that deep stitch pain probably lasted about 2 weeks, and generally speaking, only when I was moving a certain way. So like
Yeah.
trying to get out of bed, sitting up, it would just be real sensitive, real tender, but only when you were moving it. The interesting
Right.
thing is the way they explained it to me is that you might feel a pop at some point, and if you feel a pop, it means that those stitches on the inside of it's healing and they've come apart, which is good. Don't
Mhm.
worry. I never felt the pop.
I don't remember
Interestingly
feeling that
enough,
either.
at about the 2 week mark, the sharp pain went away and the muscle pain came in, and it was interesting how it segued. It was like that the the incision spot or where they did the traumatic part had healed,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean that they still didn't get in and dig crazy with the muscle.
Right.
there, right? So then it became muscle pain for another like 2 weeks. And then
Yeah. Let me ask you, so when you were home, were you able to sleep in your bed right away?
so I didn't know if I was allowed to. So night number one, um, so night number one, I laid on the bed on the side I normally slept on then, which is
Mhm.
the right side of the bed, and I just was really propped up. And then I needed to get up and to go to the bathroom, and I couldn't. And so I had to call my son on the phone in his room to come in and help me. And that it was because of that pain. It was that
Right.
sharp pain, and that scared me. And then after that, I walked. I walked the house a lot, and then it was a horrible night. But to answer your question, I did try to sleep in the bed in
Mhm.
the recliner, which a lot of people had told me the recliner was the answer.
Yeah.
The second night I slept in the bed and I was same side of the bed, and I was like, oh, I'm sleeping on the right side and then I'm getting out to the right, which means I'm putting every bit of pull and tear on that side. Switch to the other side, dumbass. So like I switched to the other side and I still wasn't even sure if I was allowed to sleep in a bed. Or no. I knew I could sleep in a bed. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to roll over.
Right.
And I don't sleep on my back. I usually sleep on my stomach or my
Yeah,
side.
I do too.
But on day 3, the nurse called just to check like a follow-up, and I asked her, and she goes, "You sleep however you want, as long as you can rest, get a lot of rest." So she
See,
is okay.
and that's good. And I tell like obviously everybody's different. Like, we're all gonna have different pain levels. For me, that incision pain was pretty gnarly. Like the first night was out of the question. I am not just the idea. It's like you did like 1,000 crunches and your
Which
abs
I've
are
never
hurting.
for the record.
Which, okay, to this day I've never done it either. But it's what I assume would be like 1,000 crunches. And the idea of like propping yourself in and out of bed was just not doable.
Yeah.
Now, some people say it only lasts like a couple days for them. For me, I slept on a recliner for 3 weeks before I was able to actually get up and off the bed. But that was just me personally.
Yeah.
So for you, a couple days, not too bad.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, I remember like when I was in my household and we were teenagers and my brother was a teenage boy, and my mom used to joke that he's eating her out of house and home, like, because like teenagers like have this voracious appetite because of, their bodies are changing, they're active and they got to keep up with it. So what has it been like for you? You're on this very, very restrictive diet, living with your son who could probably just about eat anything and everything without having it affect him. Like, has there been a struggle with that?
Yeah, a little bit, and I'll touch on the couple moments that I've had. First of all, what's up, Paige? She said that you guys are making me thankful that I didn't have anything removed with RNY. Like, yeah, that's a catch-22 because part of me sometimes I'm like, well, I wouldn't want bypass because of XYZ. I'd rather have
Yeah.
sleep. But then, like in her case, she's like, well, I'd rather not have something ripped out of my stomach, especially the
Well,
explanation you got where it's like from your doctor.
like, you're
But
gonna pull that shit out.
but that is really funny what Paige said. So I don't. It to this day, at this point, it does not bother me to see somebody eating. First of all, let's be honest. First couple weeks, I didn't want to eat anything.
Yeah.
Eating didn't sound fun. I've had 2 moments that were challenging. One was probably a good week into after surgery. Braxton brought home some Cane's chicken. We're not sponsored by Raising Cane's, but if we were, that'd be awesome. But he brought home Raising Cane's chicken, and so he's sitting in the living room with his. We're watching some YouTube, and he's got the ottomans in front of him over on the other side of the couch, and he's got like his awesome, delicious Cane's dipping sauce, and he's got these chicken strips and fries and this Texas toast, and I'm like, it smelled so good. I didn't
Hmm.
looking at it didn't look appealing because like it would have killed me to eat it,
Yeah.
but the smell, I was like, I kind of miss the smell. I kind of miss it. There
Yeah.
was that moment where I was like, ooh, I wish I could like beat that up right now. There was that, and then there was maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, he had made like just a frozen pizza, and um, and let me say this, like he always has been and is super respectful. I mean, like if I had
Yes.
said I would prefer you not eat it in front of me, or will you make a different decision, like he would. Like he is very respectful of it, but it wasn't a big bother to me, so I just let him
Right.
be a kid, be a
And it
teenager.
wasn't intentional to purposely like berate you with like food that you can't have.
And if I would have said like, "Hey, will you go ahead and eat it at the restaurant?" because I really don't want to see it. But no, I'd rather
Yeah.
I'm watching TV with me. Like I'd rather be close to him, So,
Right. And had you
but
asked him, he would have done it no problem.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks later, he makes this oven bake frozen pizza, and again, didn't bother me, didn't care, didn't need the pizza, didn't want the pizza. I don't even think that pizza, like I don't even think it smelled good. I didn't even care. What I cared about was that after he ate, he went to run some errands. 16-year-olds, when they get their license, they have all kinds of errands to run, by the
Oh,
way.
of
Like,
course.
oh, I forgot. I got to go get that bottle of water. Oh, I forgot to go to the bank.
Mhm.
Oh, Dad, can I run to, you know? And
Yeah.
so there's all these errands. Well, whenever he was going to do, he had accidentally, and he's usually really good about this, but he had left the pizza out. He didn't put it away. Like, he didn't put the slices in the fridge or in a Tupperware or whatever. And so naturally, when I saw that, 20, 30 minutes later, I put it up. Well, it was slightly greasy pizza, and it did smell good when I was standing in front of it. Um, and I'm touching pizza, which I love pizza. It's not like my
Yeah.
go-to, but it's pizza. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the all-American favorite, right? And so that was hard physically and mentally for me to grab these slices of pizza and then put them away into the fridge. And then I've got, not to sound gross, but then you've got the grease. So there's not only is there the grease, but there's the smell of the grease.
Right.
And it was like I wanted that. At that point,
Mhm.
that was really hard for me as a guy who's loved food to be putting this food away that I theoretically wasn't touching. I was literally touching it, but I couldn't touch
Right.
it, right?
And
And
every ounce of energy is to fight off the urge to just lick it or just like
or
have it
take a
just touch
bite,
your
a
tongue
piece,
or anything.
girl, a piece of pepperoni fell off of it, and naturally, I just wanted to be like, you know, and I
Sure.
didn't,
I
but
just want to lick
it
it.
was not easy. Yeah, it was not easy. So I took it as a learning moment for Braxton. When he came home, we talked about it, and I just explained to him.
Yeah.
That was a couple weeks in, and so I said, "Hey, just so you know where I'm at with things, that I know you didn't mean to leave it out. Like, I'm not mad that you left it out, but I need
Right.
you to understand. Like, I need you to take extra precautions, extra thinking, extra responsibility to make sure you're not leaving food out." So that it ends up in my hands and I'm putting it away, because that's
Mm.
really hard on me mentally. Like, it's
Yeah.
very, very hard to that's challenging. And so there was just those two moments. Other than that, no, I don't have a problem. If somebody's eating, doesn't bother me. Braxton's eating, doesn't bother me. I mean, he'll eat, like, even if he's having like a shake or something, like dessert, like, that doesn't bother me. They On Thanksgiving, my mom and Braxton both,
Mm.
she came over to my house, and they had dessert, and it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. And Cindy writes in her brother sometimes chews foods and then spits them out just so he can have the flavor and mouthfeel once in a while. And I know people that do that.
Heard of
And
that?
I am not one to judge anyone. I know for me, if I did that, it was going to start a downward snowball into going in the wrong direction. Because, like, if you can just, for me personally, if I was able to justify just doing that once, then like, okay, well, it's been I can do it again, and then I can do it again, but then this time maybe I can actually swallow that little bite of it. And so for me personally, that I did not have very good self-control, so I had to be removed from it entirely. But if
I
you can do that, more power to you. I'm not judging you at all.
Yeah, and there's people that, like, during the puree stage, they like put a hamburger in a blender and
Hmm.
drink. I asked somebody, I'm like, "You did that?" And
I
actually,
can't
I
do
think it
that.
might have been David, a TikTok friend. I think it's somebody, and they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, what did it taste like?" Because I would think they'd say disgusting, and the answer was like, "Tastes like a hamburger." That does
Yeah.
not sound appealing to me at all. Like, I don't want to go down anything that is going to be dangerous for me. Thank you, Paige, for the compliment, by the way. I don't. Anyways, yeah. So, but
I'm not
yeah,
gonna I'm not gonna put it on the Spotify audio version, but people watching it can see Cindy's comment, and it's freaking
yeah,
hilarious.
Cindy, edgy Cindy.
Um, One of the things that you and I had talked about before, and I was telling you, I don't think we've ever really talked about on the show, is what you called food guilt.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit what you meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's dark. It's the darkest part of my journey of
Well,
obesity.
are we supposed to only talk about sunshine and rainbows with this?
I thought that's what the deal was. Yeah, we only just fantasy world, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, like normally, I want to break the fantasy world. Like, I want to
Oh,
people
can,
get us
can you?
out of the rainbows for just a moment.
Okay. Um, Food guilt to me, for me, is and has been for years. Still to this day, I'm actually struggling with it right now, post op. I mean, I'm not eating any shit food, but
Right.
I do have correlations. So basically, for me and everybody, I know everybody's story is a little bit different, but like, if I was gonna eat something, I would just immediately feel guilt. So I would talk myself into it and then guilt myself, shame myself out of it. And that could last 24 hours, it could last 5 minutes. I've even had people like my son, my mom, my ex girlfriend say, "Gosh, you seem kind of cranky." And it would be cranky after I made a bad food decision, because now my
Hmm.
belly's full. Now I'm carrying this amazing amount of, this ton amount of, a huge amount of guilt. And I'm just like a little bit snappy, and I'm not a snappy guy. And so people have noticed that, like, and I'm like, that's me internalizing. Like, that's me
Right.
beating myself up. And like, now I, um, and then I'm expressing it the wrong way, and so does that make sense?
No, it does. Because I think I was telling you, I used to do this thing, like it used to be a joke, but I would eat way too fast. So by the time my brain registered I was full, I was already past the point of no return. And you're so uncomfortable and you're like, I knew that that was going to affect me that way. And then like you almost consider yourself like this piece of garbage, like for like giving into it. Or every time I ate something, I always regretted it afterwards, or I would beat myself up. Like, why did I have that one bite of whatever? Or why did I have that extra bite? And so and it sucks because like there will come a time. I'm not saying that you go out and splurge and start eating all of the foods that you can't eat, but years are gonna go by and you're gonna be fully and completely healed. Your stomach's gonna be able to tolerate anything and everything. I know that some people cannot try things because it's going to be a slippery slope for them. They're going to go back into old patterns. But there's other people where you can learn that you can enjoy a bite or two of some of your old favorites and enjoy it for the moment. And that doesn't mean that you've completely ruined everything and your life is over.
Mm.
And it's hard that for people not to beat themselves up over it or think of themselves as a failure, or you don't have to have guilt over everything that you eat.
I'm gonna tell you a story, and as I was thinking of this just now, an old story came up that I think you'll need to know, especially for this all correlating, because you asked earlier about like what's my originate, like the origin story.
Yeah.
But let me say this, like, so yes, your point is valid. So the other night, Sunday, Braxton and I went to this burger joint. Like burgers are my favorite food. So he was like, "Well, where can we eat?" And I was like, "We can eat wherever." And it was a Sunday evening, and I was like, "Well, we can go to Tucker's Burgers." And because I knew I could just get a burger like patty. So all I got was a hamburger patty with grilled onions on it and cheese, like a quarter pound. It didn't even matter what size because I knew I couldn't eat it all. So,
Right.
back in the day, you're like, maybe I should get a double or whatever. But like now it's kind of nice. That's a really nice feeling, is not
Mhm.
caring about portions, because one of my biggest struggles is like overeating. I
Mhm.
would convince myself, well, I didn't eat breakfast, so I can eat a huge lunch. And I haven't eaten
Right.
lunch at 12, and now it's 8. So then I can eat this huge, ridiculous dinner. Like it's such a spiral problem. Shame spiral is hard to break, but getting out of that process is so liberating. Amen. That's
Mhm.
awesome. And I hope to be set free from that one day. But so Braxton gets a shake and he gets fries and he gets a double burger. He didn't need the double burger. He didn't actually only ate half of it, but he thought he needed a double burger. And I mean, these burgers are like the bomb.
They're big.
They're big and they're bomb. Like they look so good. So I'm eating with a fork in this little paper bowl that's the paper's ripping, and I'm just eating my little one bite at a time of this burger, which was delicious. But I'm watching him with this bacon cheeseburger. Just
Mhm.
I wanted a bite so bad. Like that's my food. Like that is my jam.
Right.
That's like if there's a thing, that's my thing. Like, give me a burger. And I really, really, really wanted to take a bite of it. I didn't, and he would have let
Mhm.
me. In fact, when he threw the other half, put it back in the bag to throw away, there was this part of me that's like, dude, I wish I could just tear that up.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I had already eaten most of my patty, and I was like, no, I can't do it. That's the
Yeah, like, I'm
thing right now, is like it's still like your body tells you like you're done.
yes.
But as you were talking, and I was thinking about sharing that with you, it made me think about my ninth birthday.
Tell me about your ninth birthday.
I think I need to post this on the Tiki Talk one day. I have a picture I posted occasionally on Facebook. For my ninth birthday, my birthday cake was made to look like a big hamburger, and it was a birthday cake. And I was just thinking, first of all, like that's probably why I love hamburgers. Second of all, that's probably why I was fucking 365 pounds.
You're
Because
funny.
there's like this correlation of like my birthday cake was made
Is
to
a
look like
burger.
a burger. It's a burger.
Right.
And then the first story I told you was at 16, when I'm convincing my mom I need two Whoppers, not one. And that was like this pivotal moment for me. Like, you have a problem.
Yeah.
So it just made me think and reflect back to that. Like, that's probably a problem. It's
Well,
okay.
it just shows that burgers have been your jam from like a very, very young age.
Jam on it. For sure.
Making Yeah, so Jason said it's about the law of average, making the better decisions the majority of the time allows you to eat off plan every once in a while. And one thing that I've learned lately, especially this year for some reason, I get hungry every 2 to 3 hours, no matter what. even if I have lunch and if I ate it slightly a little too fast, or if I ate too much and I'm uncomfortable, I'm like, oh my God, I hate myself right now. 2 hours later, I am always hungry again. So I'm learning to remind myself that I don't need to finish this right now. I don't need to push it because I'm just going to be hungry again. I can now prolong this meal into probably a few more throughout the day. And one thing I love about this surgery is when I go out with friends or even I'm a cheap date. It
Yeah.
doesn't take much to feed me. I used to love the social aspect of going out at the table and having a bunch of food and drinks and the whole shebang. And I'm like, there are times I've been out with groups of friends and I won't order anything. And they're like, don't you want to eat? I'm like, oh, you're all going to give me one bite of everything here and then I'm good.
I'm satisfied. Yeah.
And
No, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so I love being a cheap date right now. Just
Yeah.
saying.
I've always been a cheap date, but not
Um,
part. I want to say something about what Jason said. Like, Jason has a great point. If you are ready for that, like, that's your
mhm.
story today, Jason. That is not my story today. Because here's the thing, like, as I read that, like, it allows you to eat off plan every once in a while. The 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 mature part of me is like, well, of course, like, you don't have to beat yourself up. Like,
Right.
that's one of the, in fact, pre-op, Sherry, just so you know, like, one of the things I would tell my mom, one of the things I'm excited about is that I can eat whatever I want without guilt, just a smaller amount.
Hmm.
I will say that since surgery, I haven't eaten anything bad, and there's some reasons for that. Part of it is because I want to get great results. The other part is, like, I
Right.
don't go down a spiral, a rabbit trail that's not healthy, mentally or physically. But I mean, I do. There will be a day when I can eat, like, oh, we're having Cane's chicken. Cool, I can have a chicken strip
Hmm.
and fries, and be very satisfied. Like, I know that day will come. But to
Right.
Jason's point, like, the second part of the second translation for me when I read that is like, no, there's so much mental internal, like, guilt and abuse in making that bad choice. It's not worth it to me today.
Yeah.
Like, today, that's not my story. 10 weeks out, almost 11, not my story. 8 years out for you might absolutely be your story. Like, of course, like,
Right.
I want to, like, there's a friend on Facebook, on TikTok, Mrs. Pep, and, like, she's super open about what she eats.
Hmm.
And I don't know how far post-op she is, but she's had an amazing result. She's in a maintenance phase of her, and so if she wants to talk about it, she gets to talk about it. She gets what she wants, how she wants it, and
Right.
in an amount that is appropriate.
Right. And
And that's
oh, go
good.
ahead.
No, that's it.
Oh, what that's it. One thing I was just gonna say though is people need to understand is that we all are different in this journey. Like what works for you is not gonna work for anybody else. Like I said, some people are gonna be able to experiment later on down the road. Other people are not going to. One of the things that we fail to understand the most in this community is yes, you had a major surgery. Yes, your stomach was cut, whether it's in a pouch or a sleeve or however the thing is. This is a very, very huge mental journey as well. And when you're early on, you don't realize how impactful that is until, like, as the journey's going on and you start approaching certain situations where maybe you're at a party and there's no healthy options there. And so it's the mental part of this is so important to understand that in the beginning, you don't know what the end result is going to be like right now. So you're taking one day at a time, 1 ounce of protein at a time. And then, yes, eventually down the road, you might be able to go to that burger place with your son and get a burger with all of the fixings on it and have 3 or 4 bites and then be satisfied. Other people are not well enough in the mental aspect of their journey where they'll be like, I cannot do that because I will completely spiral out of control.
Yeah.
So it's really about having, like, the mental aspect constantly in check. And one of the great things, and you and I met through TikTok, and one of the great things about TikTok and some of the social media platforms is there's a plethora of knowledge out there and people in all different, areas of their journey that you can talk to somebody about what you're going through and think that it's completely unique and find out a lot of other people are the exact same boat. And if they're further out, they can be like, hey, this worked for me. It might not work for you, but this, you can try this because that might, help you along the way.
No, I love that, and that's one of the things I do love about the community finding. And we'll probably
Mhm.
talk about that. But I mean, the truth is, none of us are doctors, and we're not going to claim to cure
Right.
anything. We're not going to give medical advice. But along those lines, it's so nice to hear the different story or the different
Hmm.
experience, or like Jason said, yeah, I'm 3 years out, so it's different, or like just an example, like you're like, well, maybe you can go eat that burger with your son and eat a few bites
Mhm.
of it like one day and he won't spiral. Like, yeah, like there'll be a day I hope that that's not a guilt thing. Cause for me, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
that I'll have control to just eat a few bites. I mean, today I can say that because I physically can only eat a few bites.
Right.
I mean, it's a little bit of a fear 2 years, 3 years away. Like that's still scary for me, but I can't know until I get there. But yeah, like you're right. It's so nice to be able to ask or lean on somebody that has an 8 year experience or a 20 year
Mhm.
experience or a we have friends and that are two. There's a gal Val who's 2 weeks ahead of me, so I'm
Mhm.
10 weeks, he's 12 weeks, and that's really cool to compare kind of how
Mhm.
we feel. So you're right, like that's a very fortunate piece of it.
Yeah. And let me ask you something, because like I told you, it's going to go by really quickly. One of the questions that I always ask the guys on the show is when I did a bariatric deep dive episode, like I think like it was like a month or two ago. And when I was doing this deep dive, I used to always think it was crazy that there were so many women talking about bariatric surgery. I'm like, how come there's not as many men? Well, first and foremost, I learned that's like 70% of all the surgeries and bariatric surgeries are women. So, right off the bat, there's a reason why there's a lot more women posting on it.
Mhm.
But that's still like 30% of the guys. And if you're scrambling through TikTok or something on social media, there's a very small percentage of that 30% that are actively posting about their story and actively talking about it. And I always love having guys on the show because I really like hearing their perspective of it. And so one of the questions that I ask, and I'm going to put you in the hot seat now, is why do you think that men are not as vocal about having weight loss surgery?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking like the total wrong guy because I'm the most open guy ever. Like everything is on my social media about everything about me. So I'm super not public, not private at all. I'm very public. Um, I would say part of it is macho pride and arrogance. Um, and I would maybe also say sometimes guys, and I can only speak for me, but just in what I've like, maybe I've my assumptions from what I feel like I've seen,
Right.
it, maybe sometimes guys might downplay, not downplay like fake it, but downplay in the sense of like it's not as big of a deal, or maybe it's not as big of a life change to them, or publicly, like to them,
Right.
they're going through their own little struggle. I know most of the men that I know that have had surgery, yeah, you're right. Like, was never put out there. In fact, the guy called that day I decided I think I'm going to be
Mm.
open to this. He had never posted that he had surgery. He just was, I was seeing a different version of him and I'm not stupid.
Right.
He did something drastic, you know? But yeah, I mean, you're right. That's a really valid thing. So I can't speak for any other guys. A, why the percentage is so much smaller, and B, why they do seem to be a little bit more private about it. But I mean, what comes to mind is that there's often a lot more arrogance from guys. You know, sometimes they're just like, it's just not. It's more important to them to be tough and macho. You know, and
Yeah.
so. Do you think it's less accepted from society for guys to have the surgery compared to women?
Good
I don't really know.
question.
That's a really good question, but I don't care what people think, so that doesn't affect me. But um, I
I
think
I
maybe.
do think I don't know. I do think that there's like this element of masculinity, machismo kind of attitude that like I'm a man, I need to do this on my own, and it's weaker to be vulnerable. I think that
Mhm.
there's like I grew up and people who know me, I was a total tomboy. So I've always had like this weird, like, even though I was a chick, I had this weird machismo attitude. You can never be weak. You can never show weakness. You can never cry because if people think you're weak, then they can harm you or they can hurt you. So you have to put on this constant front and not accept help. You have to do it on your own. And I think that there's an element with a lot of people that kind of and I think it's more common with a lot of guys like, no, if I do that, I'm taking the easy way out or I'm being less of a man by asking some doctor for help. I don't know, that's just my thought.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your vulnerability about that. I think that's important for people to know. Like again, we're all a product of our how we were raised, and
Mhm.
that was you. You were a little bit more on the less emotional, more like tomboyish side, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, all of our stories are different. Cindy says society doesn't put as much pressure on men than women when it comes to weight. I mean, I think stereotypically that might be true, but I also think like it's not really fair to say that
I th-
because,
yeah.
like, generally speaking, yeah, like women like are expected to be beautiful, or I mean, there are all those things. Um, but I've also been on the other side of it where I've been judged and not given opportunities because of who I am by my
And
looks.
I'm going to tell you this. Up until maybe a few months ago, I had the same opinion that Cindy does. I thought that women had it way harder because there's this element of expectation of beauty. You have to fit into a size, we have like these unrealistic goals in Hollywood. You have to be like a size 0, and women are judged very harshly for their bodies and their frame. Whereas I believed that it wasn't the same stigma for men, because men in Hollywood could be very big and, husky, but they had a personality, or they were the funny guy, so they still got the chicks. Or if you have money, then that. But what I realized in interviewing a lot of you men, they're like, no, I will go toe to toe to you with insecurities all day long. I was like, it's just that it's not as talked about as much, or we're not as vocal about it as women are. Women are vocal about how we're treated differently because of our look. I can't tell you how many issues I've had in the job force because I was an obese woman and looked upon. And you just assume that men don't go through the same thing too. Men are just not talking about it as often.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, no, I think, I mean, and I'm just reading Cindy's comment as
Mm.
well. I think everybody's walk is different, and that's just
Hmm.
the bottom line. I mean, there are large, round, full figured, drop dead gorgeous women, just like there's
Hmm.
probably big, husky, very attractive men.
Hmm.
And then there are the other sides and the other extremes. And so, I mean, I just think everybody's walk is different, so
I
it's
will
hard
say,
to it's
I will say that I do think that it's shifting over the years. The way that we view beauty, there's a lot more. They're introducing more plus size models and plus size beauty. Like, whereas 20 years ago when I was in high school, that was non-existent. And I do think that as a society, as humanity, we are shifting in the right direction. We're not fully there yet. We're a long way, but I do feel that over time it is going to get easier, and people are going to be more embracing of who they are and loving themselves exactly as they are. I don't believe that at 350 pounds, I should have been celebrated for being 350 pounds, because I think that that's unhealthy. But I think that I'm accepting that I was 350 pounds and I love me for who I am internally. But I do want to make a change, and I want to be a healthy version. It didn't mean that I wanted to be a size 2.
mm,
I just wanted to be a healthy version and not and one day not wake up and have become some kind of a statistic that I died early because of my obesity. So I do think that it's good that we're celebrating the notion of loving ourselves exactly as we are, but it's okay to strive to be a better version of ourselves if possible.
100%. So I have always said, like, I'm super confident in who I am as a person. I've just not always been confident in my looks, right? And
Yeah.
mostly by I mean my size. Like, I don't think I'm an ugly person, but I just am a big guy. We have a mutual friend, Jenna Squared, and
Hmm.
Jenna is in the middle of her weight loss journey right now, and she is one of the most confident, bright people that
Yes.
her energy is, first of all, she's super spicy in her personality, but she's
She's
also,
been on the show a couple times.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, but she's fun, and she's said before, like, I was just as confident, whatever her
Hmm.
weight previous to where she's at. I mean, she's in the middle of her journey, but I mean, she's like, I was just as confident then, as I am now, or I don't remember exact words, but basically, like, she's the same person. And so, kind of like what you're saying, it's like you are an amazing human. Like, there's not a person that's watching, listening, viewing that'll watch this later, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, tomorrow, that is not a perfectly made worthy human. Like,
Right.
we are worthy humans regardless of what's on the outside. But you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, no matter how confident a Jenna Squared is, she's still an over 300-pound person who, like, for her health has to change. No matter how
Right.
confident Chaz is as a person and how
Hmm.
proud I am of who I am and what I've done in my life, generally speaking, I it does not mean I'm taking care of myself. We have a
Right.
responsibility to ourselves to take care of ourselves, and we also have a responsibility to the people around us. And so, yeah, I think that's important. I mean, you really did hit it. Like, at the end of the day, like, doesn't matter how beautiful you are, how big you are, how rough you are, tough, whatever. At the end of the day, like, are we going to die early because of obesity?
Right.
very possible. Now, the other reality is like, I don't know where you are on this, but like, I don't think that me having surgery necessarily means I'm going to live another 50 years because we may not die. Like, you could have surgery and die on the way home. I'm not trying to be dark about it, but
Right.
I
No,
think
it's true.
we are not invisible. Like, we are not invisible because we had surgery or because we lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds. Or some of our friends have these amazing weight loss stories over 100, 150 pounds, which I'm so happy for them. And I can't wait for that to be my story. But it doesn't mean we're bulletproof. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we can't just assume that like we can't ride on just that, like just
Right.
the weight loss piece of it. You know what I mean?
No, and I've been very vocal about it in my personal life that we are not immune to tragedy and we are not immortal. Yes, having the surgeries does not guarantee that you're going to live to 80 or 90. Unfortunately, in my life, I lost somebody who was 27 years old unexpectedly. He was practically my brother, and that hit me hard. And that was a very stark reality that it can hit any one of us in any given moment. So, if having this weight loss surgery now gives me an opportunity to start doing shit every day that I've never been able to do before and at least strive to live the best freaking life possible on a daily basis, then that's what this surgery is going to bring for me. But yeah, you're right. I could have never woken up that day in the hospital room, or something can happen. I'm not even put it out there. Shit
Yeah.
can happen,
Yeah.
and there's no guarantee that this is just going to be a one and done fix all. So you still have to actively work on yourself every day. You still have to actively strive to be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today
Yeah.
and live the best life possible. And yes, this surgery will give you a lot of the benefits for you to be able to do a lot of those things, but it's not guaranteed. That's where you have to put the work in and, go out and do it.
Agree.
So okay, I'm not done with you yet. So we should be wrapping up the show, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, because, and the reason I say this is because you and I met in this social media, in this TikTok community. So I'm just kind of curious to know your thoughts on how important do you think community is to your personal weight loss journey success?
Um, Incredibly more than I knew 3 weeks ago. I didn't get on social. I'm social media is my jam. I'm big on social media.
Right.
Um, I I love it. It's good for my life. It's good for my business. It's good for my. It's like I love social media. Um, very well said, Susan. I love that comment. I I didn't post anything for 4 weeks, like on TikTok after my surgery, for no particular reason other than like I didn't post any. Like, I'm a realtor. I didn't post any real estate stuff. I didn't.
Right.
I was not. I was healing, straight up. Like, I was way more worried about my healing than anything else, and not worried, but like I just was doing me, just straight.
Right.
Um, and previous to surgery, like, I asked a lot of questions. I was in some forums, some different groups, like on Facebook groups and bariatric type groups, and I connected with a few people, and I'm super grateful for that.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until I need to go back. I'd love to know when I actually got to interact with you with this community of TikTok at first. I feel like it's been 3 weeks or so. It's been a whirlwind.
I
Um,
think so.
there's been so much powerful life stuff since joining this community, not just for me, but for the people I've got to witness things happening. Like, it's been one of the greatest joys of my life as a single dad, as an only child, with a small family. Like, not to sound cliche, but like, I feel like I have found family. The words and the actions out of some of these people's mouths
Mhm.
are like undescribable. And I talked to bariatric people. Like, there's a lady that had surgery 2 days before me at the same place, and we connected through social media. And so we reach out. In the beginning, it was every day, just checking in on each
Hmm.
other. Our journey was so close, and now it's maybe once or twice a week. But one of the things I asked her was like, "Do you have community? Like, are you? I mean, I got a supportive husband, awesome. You got supportive teenage girls, awesome. But like, are you tied in with anybody? Like, are you building relationships with anybody? No, not really. I think it's important that you do that because it has changed everything for me. So the answer is, it's massive change. It's so important. And I know that's not easy. Some people want to be private. Some people don't want to put themselves out there. I get it. Um, but I think it change. It can change your life.
I'll tell you this. I did not have TikTok 8 years ago. I did not have Facebook or Instagram or any like of these virtual support groups.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned more this year, not even just through TikTok, but even joining like Facebook groups and communities. But especially just in the last month, I feel like it has changed like exponentially. Like, and you and I can relate. I went from like having I had 100 followers on TikTok. I posted some like cute little dancey videos or whatever, to started talking about the gastric sleeve for me and my journey. And then like you met like this community, and then overnight like you've made friends like all around, not just all around the country, but around the world.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, yeah, it starts with a couple of lives here and there. And then all of a sudden, like, we're planning a flight to Daytona, Florida, and having a meetup. And like everything's changing so quickly. And I find myself having like more of a pep in my step every day, because I might have a hard day today, but there's now a handful of people that I can reach out to, be like, hey, I'm kind of having a rough day, and like, let's talk about it. Or it just, I don't know, like I fumble when it comes to this kind of stuff because I'm not used to it, but I never realized how important community was until you have it, and
Yep.
realize, how did I survive all these years without it?
I think those words are exactly like, you never realize it till you have it. And again, that's
Mhm.
one of the, like, cheesy, like cliche type things, but
Yeah.
it's literal. It's so literal. I never dreamt that I would have this. I literally
Mhm.
look forward to being back home so I can connect, whether it's on a live, like you and I, we do a lot of lives in our little family of people. But like I look forward to the time that I can
Mhm.
be connected, like we are face to face, or even in
Mhm.
messages, or chats, or groups, or texts. It fuels me. It keeps me in it, and it just makes me feel like I'm not alone in this journey. And I don't mean like poor me alone, but I just mean like
No.
it's a walk that not everybody understands. Kind of like being
Right.
big. You're 300 pounds, and this guy that's 165 and ripped, muscled up, is like, well, all you gotta do is eat better. No, fool, you've never been in my shoes. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
making an excuse, but like you can't just say that to somebody. That's like me saying,
Yeah.
like, so sorry. I understand that you lost a family member. Like, no, but if I don't understand, then I can't say I understand.
Right.
So it's the same thing with your weight loss. Like, you've not been in those shoes, you know?
Right. And I think some people like are trying to be supportive, but they don't realize, like, if you never walked in my shoes, like, you really can't relate. Like, I'll never forget being 350 pounds, and my mom would try to be supportive, like, and she's like, Sherry, I know what it's like, because I too. Oh, that fly just came at the very end of the show. She's like, I know what you're going through, because she's like, I used to be really big too, and at one time I was 180 pounds, and I'm like,
Aw, poor thing.
are you freaking kidding me with this? I was 180 pounds, like in the 12th grade, like, or ninth grade or something like that.
Right.
And I know that she was trying to relate that, but that for her, that was a lot of weight because she had never been there before. So I get what she was trying to do, but you're like, Mom, no, like, you were
Yeah,
able to you could tie your shoes at 180. Like, I'm sorry, like, I can't even tie my shoes right now. Like, we are
absolutely.
not in the same boat.
And
But
good to that point. Like, at that was relatable to her.
right.
But that's exactly the point. Like, it's
Yeah.
not. It's actually not. Like, my leg could weigh 180. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so I know we need to wrap this up because we completely ran over time. But first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I know how hard it is to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and tell your story, and not a lot of people can do that. So it's just really cool to find people that are like, hey, I'm an open book too. Like, let's just shoot the shit and tell our journey. So first and foremost, I seriously can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate you as well. I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of it and sharing, but I also appreciate that you've created this, because there are people on the other end that need to hear that. So yes, thank you, but also think like truly thank you for what you do.
No, I appreciate that. And so if people want to follow Chaz on TikTok, what's your TikTok handle?
TikTok is unbesleevable.
Which is like the cutest name ever, I have to say. It's so
Thanks.
unique.
But they can also just type in Chaz Foster, CHASF, like on the screen, CHASFOSTER.
Yeah. So if anybody has any questions for Chaz, I'm really hoping that I've bullied him enough that he'll come on the show again next year, because I would like to do an update, because you and I have a special bet going
Yeah,
for
we do.
March.
And
And I
no, we
and
decided it's not a bet. We have an
Oh, it's
encouragement.
not a bet. We have an encouragement. We have an agreement, a goal that we're going to shoot for in March. And so I think it would be a lot of fun that maybe we can plan something in March and see how that. We're not going to tell you what it is, but
No, we'll
talk
tell
about
you
it.
after we've both accomplished it.
Yes.
But don't forget, there's also one other thing that we talked about accomplishing in January. We need to reconvene on that subject and push each other through January. You don't even remember.
No, I do remember.
Okay.
I'm the one who initiated it.
I know, but you looked a little dumbfounded for a minute. I was like, she
Well,
forgot.
I had to think about it for a second. That I don't mind. And I'll be honest with you, maybe it's an accountability thing. I'll make this really quick. Is if you've been watching my story, because I was doing it while we were doing the shows, I did the 75 hard in February of this year. And then after that, I did accomplish phase 1. And then I did accomplish phase 2, which I never thought I was going to do.
Amazing.
So there's one final phase as part of the entire 75 hard program, which is you have to complete it before the 1 year anniversary, and you can't start it until 30 days before the 1 year anniversary, which would be January 1st. Which, if you've ever known anything about the 75 hard or looked up phase 1, that was the hardest 30 days I had ever had in my entire life. And that's including having the surgery. Like, the mental aspect of it alone was extremely challenging. And from what I understand, the final phase was everything that I did in phase 1, but let's add some more shit to it and make it extremely challenging.
Wow.
So there's a part of me that, because I've come this far, I'm also very stubborn and I have to prove to myself that I can do things. I told Chaz that I've been on the fence, but I'm kind of thinking about completing what I started and ending on a really high note. So you guys can follow up for updates on there. There might be some cranky shows in January if I'm taking cold showers and giving up everything that I love for a few days. But yeah, so I think Chaz might do a variation of it and join me on the journey. We're going to discuss all the details. If anybody wants to follow Chaz, like I said, you can follow him on Unbesleevable. You can always follow me on TikTok, Sherry Arcuria. If you want to be a guest on the show, if you have any questions for Chaz and you can't find it, if you're not a part of TikTok, you can always email me, info@sherryarcuria.com. You can watch the show later on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, Spotify, iTunes. Like, I'm all over the place, so you're not getting rid of me anytime soon.
Perfect.
So on that note, thank you again so much. And for everyone else, I hope you guys have a very, very Merry Christmas, a very happy holidays, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.